Okie dokie, I believe we are all the way live. Hello and welcome to my graveyard. I am your host of the evening, the Cemetery Man from Salem, Mass. Always taking names and kicking candy ass, live and in living color, here with you only on the graveyard. And tonight, ladies and gentlemen, I ask you the simple question: are you ready for Freddy? Yes, ladies and gents, tonight it is a versus episode of Grande's Graveyard, and a very first time for that format because in general, we're asking which movie of the two is better, which two of the movies, which one of the two is the superior film. Well, tonight we're asking a different question. That's just the slight opposite. Yes, ladies and gents, tonight we will ask the crucial question: which film is shittier? Is it A Nightmare on Elm Street Part 5, The Dream Child? Or is it Freddy's Dead, The Final Nightmare, A Nightmare on Elm Street Part 6. So tonight, these two will duke it out. We have 10 wonderful categories. We have 2 shitacular sequels of a legendary horror movie in the original Nightmare on Elm Street. And, you know, it's a disgrace that how far these movies fell with these two. We'll discuss it, the good, the bad, and the ugly. There's not a lot of good. There is a lot of bad, and there may just be an ugly thing or two in here. So I'm very excited tonight to get into all things A Nightmare on Elm Street Part 5 versus Part 6. If you have an opinion on this, I've had so many people reach out to me and tell me what their thoughts were. Please feel free to tell me what your thoughts are. We're also going to get into a little bit of next week's show, the March Madness, before we kick tonight off. But first things first, let's get to the chat. Let's hear what y'all have to say. We got Miss C in the house, Ciao Grande and friends. Pig hand waving. Welcome, Miss C. Hope all is well with you, my friend. Ciao Grande. I saw Freddy's Dead in the theater. I prefer not to express any opinions about the movie. The 3D experience was great. Hi to all graveyardians. Really? Now that is interesting. You're not gonna share opinions, but you will say that the 3D was badass. And hey, man, if you like the 3D, that's perfectly fine because in this home video version on the Nightmare on Elm Street box set, you actually do get 2 pairs of A Nightmare on Elm Street 3D glasses here. So you can watch the movie. I did rewatch the movie in 3D. Granted, the finale is really the only thing in 3D. The rest of the movie is standard, whatever, 2D. And I don't know. I mean, I was never one to see this in the theater. I wasn't around when this was in the theater, so maybe that 3D worked a little bit better in the theater. Although what I'm told is that was always the red blue. Maybe you can clarify that. Was that always the red blue? In my research, I found it was red blue. However, for like the original Friday the 13th Part 3 in 3D, that was not red blue in the theater. That was like the good 3D, where it's just like a standard pair of glasses, no red, no blue, no trick on the eyes with that. But you know, I always felt it was like the better, like the real 3D is not the red blue gimmick, which, you know, doesn't work the greatest at home. Let's be perfectly honest. We have Cinephile Sanity in the house. Hey, good evening, Graveyard Crew. Welcome, my friend. Hope all's well with you. We got Ant-Man 25 in the house. Me and Anthony were talking back and forth all things Scream because, of course, if people have been living under a rock, Nev Campbell decided to come back to the Scream franchise, stabbing me in the heart and in the back and kicking me in the balls in the process. And Ant-Man was a part of the semicircle of the people jacking each other off all over to these new Scream movies. So Anthony, my friend, always fun to have you in the house. I'm very excited to hear your thoughts tonight. I know you shared it with me, you know, privately, which one of these 2 movies you prefer, but please share it to hear for all to hear, my friend. It's a boy. They saved the best for last. Slasher Fred, where do you stand on this, man? We got the taglines for both. I'll certainly say this. They did not save the best for last. That's the truth, man. They did not save the best Nightmare on Elm Street for last. But these 2, other than the remake, are the worst Elm Street movies. There's no doubt about that. I put both of them over that remake. But the question tonight is the pivotal, crucial question is which is better, or which is worse, I should say, than the other. People saying hi to one another. We got Joe Mama in the house, all caps. Let's go. Joe Mama, where do you stand on this, man? Elm Street 5 or Elm Street 6? What do you got to say? It's probably Elm Street 5. That's it. End of stream. Next topic. Well, we'll see you next time. Only. No, not really. But okay, Cinephile Sanity has spoken. Cinephile Sanity's great collaborator, Juno, he actually chimed in, and for whatever reason, it was a few days earlier, so it doesn't show up in the chat anymore. So basically he was saying that it's not even close, that Elm Street 5 is way worse. So he doesn't even think it's a close one. I think it couldn't be closer. And there's a few people that have chimed in already that have said it's not close for one or the other. Like some people scoffing that I would even ask the question. Some people think that one is superior than the other. So I don't know. Is there anyone that likes both of these movies? Like, I'd be curious if there's anyone that is a big fan of either one of these movies and would even say, go out on a limb and say, I like 5 or 6 better than one of the first 4 or multiple of the first 4. Be very curious to hear that. I really would. But we got Texas THC 1965 in the easy. Hola, Senor Grande. Hola, my friend. Hope all is well with you. We got ARAR Vlogs. That's a first time name. Welcome, my friend. Hola, hola. Let's see. Watching from the Philippines. We got a Philippines viewer watching only on the Graveyard. Philippines, my friend. Hey, what do you like better, Elm Street 5 or 6? Which is shittier? You can tell me that too. Doing well. Sean, I can't choose which is worse. I mean, part 5 had more cohesive narrative. Freddy's Dead made a little to no damn sense, especially with how the dreams function. Okay, so Anthony maybe leaning towards part 5 being the better movie, leaning towards part 6 being the shittier movie. We'll hear you out. We'll hear you out. I never been into Freddy, just mostly stick to the OG Freddy's Dead. The original Freddy's Dead and Freddy vs. Jason, my friend had some into horror. Anyway, she ended up giving me a life-size Freddy cutout. Okay, so you stick to the original Freddy vs. Jason and Freddy's Dead. So I guess the answer for you is Freddy's Dead is the better movie and thus Elm Street 5 is the shittier movie. Is that where you're standing here? That's an interesting 3 movies to stand by because I don't think they're really anything alike. Elm Street 6, Freddy vs. Jason, and the OG. That's definitely interesting. Even then, though, Freddy's Dead is also fun and enjoyable. Not scary, but enjoyable. I think the topic is very close overall. So do I. I think this is close. I had a few people being like, dude, part 5 easily is worse. And then I had 12 people, part 6 easily worse. Not even a question. I was like, wow, like, I did not think people felt that strongly about one or the other, but man, it seems that way. I mean, quite a few people have reached out. We got Mernsy. His heart is with part 5. He thinks part 5 is the better of the two. He's all the way with Fetus Freddy. He was posted on Instagram. Mernsy, welcome, my friend. And tonight we'll see. We'll just see which. Well, I guess to quote Freddy in fucking part 5, we'll see, bitch. We'll just see. We'll see tonight, John. For that time. And for being in Italy, the Red Blue was like, wow, we are in the future. Both movies are questionable, to say the least. For me, child worse than dead. Okay, so Mateo has placed his bet. Freddy, okay. Let's see. I can usually do the first 4 Elm Streets. That's it. And don't even care about the overrated New Nightmare, but I can say it's watchable. Yeah, I love the first 4. And part 7, New Nightmare. Those are the best Elm Street movies. That's my top 5 Elm Street movies. What order? I don't know. But like those are the best 5. These 2 and that remake is the shit of the series, unfortunately. They are both steaming piles of shit, equal opportunity shit. So Miss C thinks it's a tie, which we could tie. We have 10 categories. We could very well tie tonight. 6 sucks. It was very basic. Okay, so we got Texas's team. Freddy's birth child, I guess, the dream child, Mernsy. I have nostalgia for these 2 since these 2, along with part 3, my brother owned a VHS back in the day. Okay, so a little nostalgia always helps the kids' situation. Freddy's Dead was one of the first to ever include the rock group, the Goo Goo Dolls. They sang the song, I'm Awake Now. And that's an awesome song, and that is one of the categories, is soundtrack versus soundtrack. So stay tuned for that. We got, yep, I love Freddy's Dead is awesome. I love the silly, over-the-top, and bad CGI. So Miss C is all for Freddy's Dead. She thinks the Dream Child's going down tonight. She thinks that's the shittier film of the 2. That reminds me of Freddy's Dead. Does that have a banger sound? Yeah, it does. It does have a banger soundtrack. Sup Graveyard fam, Mernsy saying hello to all. We got Anthony in the House Fever Dreamland Theater. Hey, Grande, I saw both of these in the theater. Nostalgia saves Freddy's Dead for me a little bit, but not part 5. ... You know it's bad when the ... come out. Even nostalgia can't help that one much for me. Okay, fair enough. Coming from Mr. Fever Dreamland Theater, he's got part 5 as being the inferior one of the 2. So, man, it seems like we have a divided house tonight on Grande's Graveyard. I read that Freddy's Dead was originally including Freddy as an old man who had lost his talent, and the kids of Springwood were now hooked on a drug which they used to go in and beat him up. That's right. And Peter Jackson was going to direct that movie. That was going to happen. They really, really were dying to get Peter Jackson in the house to make Nightmare on Elm Street 6 at that time. And man, you know for a fact it would have been better than what they did had they got Peter Jackson. But it didn't happen, unfortunately. And I know that was around the time they wanted him to do Texas Chainsaw 3. Like, New Line realized that, wow, Peter Jackson's a great talent, but for some reason the two parties couldn't come to an agreement. And of course, Peter Jackson would just be like, hey, I'm going to go Meet the Feebles, which was great. I'm going to go make Dead Alive, which is probably his best movie. And then ended up making a name for his own, you know, with those movies and The Frighteners and so on and so forth, all the great movies that Peter Jackson went on to do. But I do wonder, in a parallel universe, what if he had directed Texas Chainsaw 3? What if he had directed Freddy's Dead Part 6 of Nightmare on Elm Street? What would have happened? What would those two movies have looked like? It's a definite, really interesting question to ask in a parallel world. What would Peter Jackson's sequels to New Line establishment horror movies have looked like? It's a very, very interesting kind of what if question to ask. We got Double V in the house. Hi, everyone. Villainous Vixen. Hello and welcome, my friend. Hope all's well with you. Hey, got to ask, Elm Street 5 or 6, which is worse? Let me know. I got to hear your thoughts. Freddy's Dead introduced me to the band Fates Warning. Their song Nothing Left to Say is a gem. Okay, well, hey, here's the thing with Freddy's Dead, too, that I'll say, you know, before we even get into this whole thing. This was a time where music had got away from like the 80s metal hair bands and was like transitioning into grunge. So this is like the one and only Nightmare on Elm Street film that feels like a grunge movie, and it has a lot of kick-ass music from that time period in it. So, you know, Freddy's Dead definitely has an interesting soundtrack and definitely a little bit more of a grunge era feel as opposed to any other film in the whole entire franchise. We got Hey Vixen, okay, people saying hi to one another. So before we kick the show off, and I've got the whole verses up, just wanted a brief update on next week's show instead of just saving it for the end, since I got a bunch of people in the house. Now I'll let you guys know now. Next week on Grande's Graveyard, it is the March Madness number 2. We have 27 films that have already been selected, 5 to be decided. We'll have 2 more matchups, our final 2 matchups tomorrow, and that will get us to our round of 32 horror movies. Now, basically what we're going to happen, I'm going to create a quiz that you can fill out your own bracket on this website that Mateo, Mr. Appendino, so shout out to him, creds to him, he told me about, called UWUFUFU, which you can create your own World Cup brackets and create whatever you want. So I did a Twilight Zone one as like a fun kind of thing, and I did all the Twilight Zone episodes, and you have to do your own bracket. What is the best Twilight Zone episode? So next week, basically what's going to happen after tomorrow, once the ballots go final, I'm going to create a quiz. I'll share it to the community. You can fill out your own bracket. And the fun of it is this particular website has the brackets as randomized matchups. So if I fill it out versus you filling it out, the matchups are going to be completely different. And of course, we're going to fill it out live next Thursday on Grande's Graveyard and declare a winner. So there could be one. There can be only one of 32 horror movies that will win. Of course, last year was The Last House on the Left. It will not be a repeating champion. It's not in the tournament. I will announce the movies that are in the tournament. I'll post a link to fill out your own bracket, and we will get to all that good stuff sometime over this weekend, if not Monday of next week at the latest, for you guys to fill out your brackets. But thank you guys for voting on these. If you haven't voted, there's still 2 days left to vote. If you go to the community tab, you can vote on, which movies can move on to the next round. As I figured, involve you guys for the first round. You guys knock out the first 32, and I will take out the last 32. Yes, ladies and gents, very fun way to do this, and I'm very excited and very thankful for everyone that helped out, made some votes, made their voices heard, told me why. And next week we will declare a winner only on Grande's Garrett. So I'm very much looking forward to that. But that's next week. That's the future. Let's worry about the here and now. Tomorrow has enough worries for itself. Let's try to enjoy today, ladies and gentlemen. Let's do it. Let's enjoy today, as tonight we do battle. Let's do battle, ladies and gents. To quote Freddy versus Jason, place your bets. Which is shittier, 5 or 6? Let's do it. Let's go. Here, Lee, go, baby. Let's go. All right. A Nightmare on Elm Street 5 versus A Nightmare on Elm Street Part 6. Yes, The Dream Child versus the final Nightmare Freddy's Dead. Brief plot synopsis on both of these monkey turds. Jesus Christ, this is rough. Here's the one for Part 5. The pregnant Alice finds Freddy Krueger striking through the sleeping mind of her unborn baby child, hoping to be reborn into the real world. Yes. And now the brief plot synopsis for Freddy's Dead. If that plot synopsis was not enough for you, we've got another one here. Dream haunting Freddy Krueger returns once again to prowl the nightmares of Springwood's last surviving teenager, John Doe, and of a woman whose personal connection to Krueger may mean his doom. Yes, a Nightmare on Elm Street 5 versus 6. Let's get into it, ladies and gentlemen. Let's get into it with one of my favorite topics of all time, of course, here on these versus shows is one sheet versus one sheet. Which of the two has the better design for the poster? Now, I actually do. I see Mernsy mentioning the snap cases. These are the actual theatrical poster arts here. So you can see part 5 here. You see part 6 here. And this is from the DVD set that New Line put out over 25 years ago. This was 1999 that these DVDs came out here. And I know that they did do that one release where it was like the Blu-ray, but it was like a standard snap case and 2 to a disc and really cheap. So I think Freddy needs the 4K treatment. I'm hoping they just eventually do a big old box set of them. That would be really cool with me, for me, in my opinion. I think it's time. 25 years, it's definitely time. But if they do that, I do hope they keep these as the artworks, because as bad as these two movies are, I will say this. I like both posters. I think both poster designs are quite nice. Of course, here on the left, you have part 5, The Dream Child. We have Freddy holding the carriage with, the bubble, the spikes around the carriage. Freddy, one of his eyes is popped out glass and kind of telling you to shh, don't wake the baby. I like that. And then for Freddy's Dead, I'm a sucker always for the red, black, and white color scheme. And here we have that awesome bright blood red color, Crayola red color, and they saved the best for last. We have the bus coming at the screen, and of course, Freddy reaching out into, just kind of hinting that it's going to be in 3D. At least part of the movie is going to be in 3D. I like both of these posters a lot, but for me, the winner of this one for the better poster art of the two is going to be this one right here. I like part 5's poster art a little bit better. It's definitely more in the vein of part 3. It's definitely more in the vein of part 4. Very similar to those poster designs. I believe those 3 were done by the same guy, whereas part 6, definitely a different type of look for Elm Street poster art. Of course, this was moving from the 1980s into the early 1990s, so I guess they decided, why the hell not? We'll switch it up a little bit. And, I do like both. I do think I do have a t-shirt somewhere of the shirt with Freddy reaching out for Freddy's Dead. So I do like that design as well. But first point here for which movie is better would be for here. So which means obviously this one gets the point for being the worst. So I guess we'll do it this way. If it gets the point, the one with the least amount of points in it is the shittier film. So right now Freddy's Dead is down 1-0 as we go back to comments. Let's see what y'all have to say. I think we were here. I like those DVDs, Grana, the old school snap case. So do I. I noticed that in both movies, Freddy pulls a male victim into something they love. In The Dream Child, he pulls Mark into a comic book. In Freddy's Dead, he pulls Spencer into the video game. That's a good point. Yeah. And unfortunately, both those death sequences just fall fucking flat on their face. We got Whopper Horror in the house. I hate both of these movies, but part 5 is so bad it's labeled as a hate crime if you get caught showing it to anybody. Okay, Whopper Horror is in the opinion of that Freddy's Dead is slightly better and that The Dream Child is shittier because it is an absolute hate crime on humanity, buddy. Okay, so Dream Child for sure. I would go with that for the poster here. I like the Dream Child poster a little bit better. There was also alternate poster for the Dream Child, which had Freddy holding a baby. I know they have that. There's that famous standout. Like there's a standee that Robert Englund actually signed in a convention a few years ago, where it's him in the carriage, and it's a giant standee that I guess they had in Regals and AMC's and whatever theaters that there were at that time, which is really cool. And there's a limited amount, but you can find them on eBay. Apparently, it's a shame it goes to such a shitty movie, but it is cool that they still have Freddy standees from over almost 35 years ago. Yeah, about 35 years ago now. For me, less is more. Always dead over child. Too much stuff in the child poster. Okay, so Mateo's leaning towards Freddy Dead here, I guess, for the more simplistic factor. I actually quite like the poster for The Dream Child. It might be the best. It might be the best thing about The Dream Child. Death at least was just a little silly. Spencer's death, however, was goofy as fuck. It had freaking cartoon sound effects, for crying out loud. Yeah, it's we're gonna debate these things, but right now, the first point goes to the Dream Child. The Dream Child gets the first point of positivity here as Freddy Dead finds itself in an early 1-0 hole. But let's move on to the next topic. Story versus story. Oh, man. Where do we fucking begin with these two pieces of monkey shit? I guess we'll begin in chronological order with part 5. So to preface this by saying, I love the first 4 Elm Streets. I know a lot of people hate 2. Like, you ask most people, they'll say 1 and 3. I like 1 and 3. They don't like 2 because of whatever reasons. It's bizarre with its tone. I think it's the darkest of all of them, even though it has not even gay undertones. You could say overtones. There's so much gay stuff in part 2 that it's like absolutely like you can't watch the film and it's just so there. And, you know, I always really like part 2 despite it being a big black sheep of the franchise. And then part 4, which is another movie that gets a lot of hate, I always thought was really, really imaginative and a really creative movie. And Rennie Harlan did such a wonderful job directing that film and really bringing these interesting visuals and colors and all of these things into it, and, you know, building the character of Lisa Wilcox, Alice, and welcome to Wonderland, Alice. And one by one, her friends are picked off, but she takes a part from each one of them. Like, she becomes smart from Sheila being killed. She becomes tough from her brother, who's like this karate kid. She becomes strong from her friend who does these lifting weights and gets killed in the Roach Motel, the Screaming Mad George. I love part 4. I actually think part 4 is the best sequel in this franchise. I really do. And like, if you're asking me if I was alive in 1988, I would have been stoked for part 5 because we are 4 for 4 in the Nightmare on Elm Street at this point. There's not one blip on the freaking radar until we get to 1989's The Dream Child, which is just, pun intended, an abortion of a fucking movie and an abortion of a plot. Because in this movie, after the wonderful ending of part 4, where she shows Freddy the reflection and all the souls burst out of his chest and grab him, and I think that's the best death that Freddy Krueger ever got, was in part 4. I love that death scene for his character. In this one, how do we get him back? Well, fuck it. Alice gets pregnant in the beginning in a weird softcore porn erotic opening where Michael Bailey Smith is in bed with a yit double, and through the dreams of this unborn baby that is in her fucking uterus, Freddy is killing off Alice's new friends that are more generic than a piece of white toast, you know, one by one, and like that. And that's the whole plot. And she has to decide, how can I beat Freddy this time? And there's also these horrendously bad flashbacks to, again, beating you over the head with Amanda Krueger, and the son of 100 maniacs, and the son of 100 maniacs. All of this stuff that we have already gone over in the past 2 movies on a million times. I mean, it's just ridiculous. This just really was a horrible idea. And I know that the whole story is Sarah Risher, who was like an executive producer at New Line, and she was involved with all these Elm Street movies in one way, shape, or form in the behind the scenes role. She was pregnant at the time. And apparently she suggested to the producers in like a big board meeting, what if Freddy had a kid? And they were like, yes, we love that idea. And apparently this was a script they had turned down for part 3 or 4. And then they called that writer back and said, hey, buddy, you got your big break. Sarah Risher is pregnant with a fucking kid. Why don't you come down here and write a script for us? And of course, this guy didn't have the same script anymore. So a lot of this movie was written on the fly, and it fucking shows. A lot of this movie was rushed, and it fucking shows. And a lot of these characters, which we'll get into, are a fucking bunch of, I almost said something politically correct. They're challenged. They're very fucking challenged and special. They're special characters, guys, because they're fucking horrible. This story is an abortion. It's an abortion of a fucking story. It is, what a terrible idea. Like there are some ideas that, okay, you know, on paper it sounded good, and in execution it didn't work. This sounds bad from the word go. It just sounds bad. If I was in that board meeting, like, I can almost imagine I would be like the Jim Cornette in that meeting. Like, goddamn, can somebody explain to me why we got to bury the Patriot? Like, if this sounds something like Vince Russo would come up with, bro, what Freddy needs, bro, is a baby. Freddy needs to be a dad. All right, bro. This is the direction we're going in, bro. That sounds like some Vince Russo shit. On the other hand, we have Freddy's Dead, The Final Nightmare, which, of course, did have to follow the shit show that was Elm Street 5, which is unfortunate for it. And they decide to do this thing, which just doesn't make any sense either, where we have this John Doe character played by Sean Greenblatt. He is the last of the Springwood kids, and Freddy's killed every child in Springwood, Ohio, except for this dumbass kid. All these parents have gone into like deep psychosis. They're fucking crazy. They've gone Looney Tunes. And Freddy sends him out of town to collect him more souls because every town has an Elm Street. And the whole idea is Freddy wants to infect the world. He wants to kill the children of the world. And then for some reason we changed the story there, and it becomes a fucking like father-daughter movie where we get Freddy's origin that we've never heard any of this shit, where Freddy was bullied and fucking Freddy was a wife abuser, and fucking Freddy's daughter is Lisa Zane, just happens to be Lisa Zane, who was this caretaker for John Doe for like a day. And it's, Daddy, I remember you used to hold my hand and I hated it then too. And what the fuck? You can't, I don't think you can get two worse plots. I really don't. Like, I hate these plots beyond hate. I fucking dreams, babies, fucking Freddy leaving Springwood to try to infect all the kids in the world and running into his daughter, who then dresses up like a 5-year-old because. And we get all these horrible flashback stuff in 3 dimensions. So, wow. I mean, that's something to shove up your fucking ass. I don't know. I don't think you can get 2 worse fucking plots than you do right here. These are 2 of the most horrible plots I've seen in any major franchise sequel. And it does go to show you that it is harder to make an Elm Street movie than it is to make a Friday the 13th movie. Like, by the time you get to 5 and 6 of Friday the 13th, 5, it was, okay, let's try an imposter. Okay, most people did not like that, although I love it. Then they went back. Okay, Jason gets struck by lightning in the fucking cemetery and he's back in part 6. That's it. It's just so simple. And both movies are people getting killed off in a camp setting. There's so much more dynamics that go into making an Elm Street movie. And maybe that's why they just collapsed and crumbled here as hard as they did. Because, listen, Part 4 was really, in my opinion, where they should have stopped this series. I mean, maybe you do a New Nightmare years and years later, but there was no coming back from Part 4. To me, Part 4 was the perfect ending. It's similar to Rocky 4. Rocky's on top of the world. He's the world champion. He has his friends. He won for his friend Apollo. He beat the unbeatable Russian. He cut him. He knocked him out. He turned the Soviets to fucking cheer for America. There's nowhere else to go, Rock. There's nowhere else to go, hence Rocky 5. And you should have left that garbage on the street where you found it. Yeah, you should have. You should have made that fucking movie. And Paulie, you said Paulie's drunk candy ass in front of the fucking money. What the hell? I hate both of these plots. They're really horrible plots. But, like, I can't even. This is just hard. I'm going to say The Dream Child has the worst plot here, though. Because bringing, like, babies and fetuses and like, that's just like the most horrible fucking idea. I actually think it's even worse than the whole, okay, John Doe and Sean Greenblatt, and then we're going to make it a fucking bloodline thing. Weird, random, shitty, but I will say at least it's maybe like an inch more logical than Elm Street 5 in the plot department. But let's see what y'all have to say. I've been ranting on for a little too long here. Let's see what y'all have to say here only on Grande's Graveyard. I think we were... Yeah, oh, Anthony, yeah, I'm going to be shipping them out, man. Sorry, I've just been so busy. I'm sorry. I'm trying to get to all of them. I'll message you for your address when it's time, man. The opening of Freddy's Dead, which had the map on the screen, reminds me of the opening in Escape from New York. Yeah, it is similar to that. That's right. Hey, Anthony. Hey, bro. The Honky Tonk Man's in the house. 4 is my jam. It's my jam, too. I love part 4, man. 1, 3, 2, 4 in that order for me. Well, hey, man, I love all the first 4 as well. Definitely better than these 2 shit stains. Let's see. Slasher Fred says, in Freddy's Dead, Freddy erases his victims from existence. Yes, exactly, which is something they just introduced in this movie. Like, it's not in any other movies where the kids are forgotten immediately after. It's just kind of thrown in there where it's like, yeah, they didn't exist anymore. Like, absolute horseshit. Mateo, unpopular opinion, I prefer Dream Warriors over the original Elm Street. Hey, man, I actually know quite a few people that would agree with that. And I don't know. I like part three, but like I always sort of lean towards the original part four and maybe even part two over part three. I like the first four a lot, but for me, I definitely think you can't go wrong with any of those. And hey, having three over one, I actually know a few people that would say that, so that's cool. Also, Lisa Zane's brother Billy played Matches, one of Biff's minions in the original, and he returned in the sequel. Okay, I hear that every now and then, Mateo, nothing wrong with that. Yeah, I've heard that. I've heard that too. I actually have heard that too, where people prefer part three. But Dream Warriors is a beloved movie. Freddy's death in four is indeed the most inspired. When we talk about the ending of Freddy's Dead, I'll bring that up again. Yes, that is one of the categories is finale versus finale. And yeah, we'll get to those finales in both of these movies because they stink. We got Live Style Rewind in the house. Vixen saying hello to everyone. Hope all is well with you. I agree, Mateo. I often say part three is the perfect movie in the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise. Okay, wait a minute. So, Miss C, before you were saying the OG, Freddy's Dead, and Freddy versus Jason. So you're also a fan of part three. Interesting. I read that Lisa Zane was going to sing a end title song for Freddy's Dead, which was going to be called The Worst Is Over. Well, I don't know. Maybe she should have because I can watch Lisa Zane. Where the next topic is lead versus lead. I actually can look at Lisa Zane all day. She was a very good looking woman. She was, of course, in Femme Fatale, I believe, the year before this. Here for the Jackie Earl Haley chat. There's no fucking remake I hate worse than that one. So, hello, Pat. Hope all is well with you. I noticed that in Freddy's Dead, when Maggie is experiencing her father's memories when he was in grade school and his classmates are mocking him for brief moment they look elderly. Yes, that's right. That's absolutely right. John is ranting already. I'm popping my popcorn. Oh, there you go. Hopefully some butter in that. Story versus story. Might as well flip a coin. Yeah, they're bad. The stories of these movies are quite bad. And like it's just a mystery as to why these movies were both greenlit with the stories that they had, because man, they are so poorly done. I know this is superficial, but I also wasn't a fan of Freddy's makeup in 4 or 5. I see. Actually, I would say that the makeup in 4 is fantastic. I love like Kevin Yeager did the effects, and you have Screaming Mad George effects. I thought part 4 Freddy looked great. Part 5 he looks okay, but part 6 they did like they made him look a little bit less of a burn victim. Like some of it's I don't know. It's not as grotesque makeup. It's more silly makeup, I guess. Where I don't know. I don't really like the makeup in part. Okay, wait a minute. So wasn't a fan of 5 and 6. Okay, yeah, no, I would agree with that, Anthony. Sorry, me either. To be fair, learning more about Freddy's backstory is probably one of the few things Freddy's Dead had going for it. Yeah, but like, then, in my opinion, though, make the movie that. Like, we go all the way with John Doe. We go all the way with Sean Greenblatt's character, and he thinks that he's Freddy's son, and then Swerve, Lisa Zane is his daughter. Like it's just it's way too long on Sean Greenblatt to just drop him at like the 52-minute mark of the movie. And then it's just like, okay, yeah, now we're going to go to the Back to the Future and we're going to see Freddy as a kid and Freddy as a teenager where Alice Cooper plays Freddy's dad and whips the fuck out of Freddy. Like, what the fuck? I don't know, man. It is a real shit show, man. Both these movies. Both movies have a peer pressuring parent. In The Dream Child, Greta's mom wants him to be the fashion model, and Freddy's Dead, Spencer's father wants him to follow in his footsteps. And hell, I'll throw one on top of that in part 5. Dan's parents want him to be the star quarterback, and they don't give a shit about him and his soon-to-be child or his soon-to-be wife and Alice. They don't really seem to care about her at all. They just want him to be a stay-at-home husband. All right, I'm sorry, not a stay-at-home. The opposite. They want him to be a quarterback. Villainous Vixen says 3 is my favorite. All right, we got another one says Dream Warriors is the GOAT. So here we go. See, I told you weren't alone. At least it's better than Freddy's Dead. Nun mama shoving Freddy's back in her womb. What the fuck? Yeah, the Dream Child plot's worse. It is worse. It's a worse plot. And that's saying a lot because the plot for Freddy's Dead sucks. What's good over there? And okay, people saying hi. In Freddy's Dead, when they stop at the carnival, it gives off a clue that Springwood is cut off from the rest of the world because Spencer, to use a phone, can't get through to anyone. That's right, man. Let's see. In regards to Freddy's Dead, they really could have dialed back on some of the humor. The clash between the horror and goofy tones just don't mesh that well. I agree wholeheartedly with that. We got AJ's Happy Fun Time channel here. Good to see you're not in the interrogation room like last week. Yeah, no, we're not being questioned in the interrogation room, my friend. No, not this week. Don't judge me, Grande LOI. Do I think part 3 is perfect story-wise? It's not personal favorite of movie. I don't judge anybody. You can hey, I see like a part 3 over any one of these movies. Freddy's Dead tries things like Freddy playing a video game, and then they try deep into his backstory as if they're trying to tell a real cohesive story. It feels like the two movies are one. Interesting. I see that's the key word here, Anthony, that like I've been asking myself all week. And you keep mentioning it. Freddy's Dead tries. Freddy's Dead tries this, tries that, tries this, tries that. I don't know if this movie fucking tried. Like, I am generally asking this question. Like, did this movie try? Because you could have fooled me. Like, if you, like, okay. Anyway, we're going to move on to other topics and stuff. I guess we could save this for later, but we might as well go there since I'm starting down that road. Here's the thing. Okay, there's no doubt that after this movie they had to call it. Like this, it did poor in the box office. Nobody fucking liked it. It was there, I believe, of the first six, it was the limpest performing movie. Nobody gave a shit. So then we take a year or two off. We take a year off. Let's rebound. Let's fucking bounce back. Let's go out with a bang. That was apparently the mentality here. We're going to take our time with this since this was such a rushed film and was rush. We got to finish on schedule. We got to release it within the year. We got a deadline to meet. We're going to rush the director. We're going to rush the writers. That's all this movie was a rush. Whereas this, they had their time after 2 years. And this is what you came up with? Like, what? Like, if I'm in that room, I'm saying, let's rebound from part 5, bygones. Let's figure this out. Let's send one of horror's greatest icons out on a high note. Let's go out with an actual bang. Let's kill them off like we've never killed them off before. And there's really no bang here. There's just no oomph to this goddamn movie. And instead of going out with like a serious, story, they go out more with like a goofy, over-the-top fucking splat-stick comedy with no splat. I mean, there's 3 deaths in this movie. There's also 3 deaths in this movie of victims. 3 and 3. You have 2 major franchise slasher movies with 6 kills total of the 2 movies. It's just fucking nonsense, man. It's just nonsense. But let's move on into the next category as, of course, Freddy's Dead knots things up. We got 1-1 as we go on into lead versus lead. The battle of the Lisas here. We have Lisa Wilcox taking on the voluptuous Lisa Zane. Yes. Before how I was saying that the posters might be the best thing in these movies, a runner-up, if not the actual best thing in both these movies, are both these women. I really like Lisa Wilcox, and I'm attracted to Lisa Zane. I think Lisa Zane's a good actress, and she's a good-looking woman. I quite like both these actresses. Now, of course, we get to know Alice a lot in the previous film. She has that big character arc where in the beginning of the film, she's shy, she's timid, she can't ask Dan, who she's head over heels without. She is kind of a daydreamer. And then, of course, by the end of the movie, she garners all of her friends' attributes and becomes an ass kicker and takes Freddy out of his freaking kingdom of the dream world and in Wonderland itself. And it's a great moment for her. And here, she's definitely grown. You can see she's tougher, she's stronger, she still looks good. Love Lisa Wilcox. Really seemed like a nice lady in real life too. In every interview I've ever seen, heard nothing but good things about her at conventions. Would love to meet her someday if she ever comes to a local show. I would absolutely want to meet Lisa Wilcox. I think she's great. I would even go out on a limb and say she's the best final girl of the series. Like, I know Heather Langenkamp is everybody's favorite. I would totally say Lisa Wilcox. Like, I love Lisa Wilcox. But on the other hand, you do have Lisa Zane, who I do think is trying, even though I don't know if the movie necessarily is. I do think Lisa Zane's trying to make this work. She's this like sort of social worker that's working with these kids, that one of them's Breckin Meyer, one of them's Carlos, one of them's Leslie Dean, I think her name is, who is one of the most annoying characters in the history of cinema, is Leslie Dean in A Nightmare on Elm Street Part 6, Freddy's Dead. And Lisa Zane is trying. She's into all these kids. She's trying to take, care of all these kids, really trying to like care for them and stuff. She really cares for John Doe's character. She's trying. You can definitely see she's given her all. And then when it becomes about her, the focus just sort of shifts towards her, towards the last maybe third of it, if you could even say the last third of it. Obviously the last 30% of it, whatever. that's when it becomes about her. And, you see she goes through the past. She puts on the old 3D glasses and sees through his past. And she's selling a lot of it with her emotion. Like, you do see that there's a little bit of sympathy there for what her father went through. And she's sad about it. And she's like upset. And then she has the confrontation. They have this very interesting, probably the best directed scene in the movie is when Freddy and her have like this kind of face off. And they do this interesting thing with the cinematography where it keeps going around in a circle around them. I liked that confrontation. I thought the two were good together. But dare I say, even with Lisa Zane being a new character and being a part of his bloodline, if you say, for lack of a better term, I thought Lisa Wilcox and Robert Englund had much better chemistry with one another. Like, you could have, if you would have just done that, and like if Lisa Wilcox came back and it was okay, she's his long lost daughter. Granted, that would have been ridiculous too, but like I would have bought it more because they clicked. Those two clicked. I loved those two together. In anything that they were in 4 and anything that they shared a screen on in 5, even though 5 is a shit show, I do think those two had a better chemistry. So for me, this is a slam dunk for Lisa Wilcox. I really like Lisa Wilcox in the movie. I think that she had more to do in part 4, but I definitely think that of the actresses, she's better, gave the better performance, had better chemistry with the lead heel. And that's saying a lot considering that I think Lisa Zane got more screen time, more dialogue, more to do with Robert Englund as opposed to Lisa Wilcox in part 5. But I think Lisa Wilcox takes the cake here. But let's see what y'all have to say. What is your thoughts on this one? I think we were here. Freddy's Dead tries the... Okay, we were there. I did that one. Sorry. In Freddy's Dead, Springwood basically becomes a dream itself because in the opening scene, the character of John is in the dream world when he is in the real world. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and Freddy kicks him out of Springwood. AJ and Whopper both secretly love part 5 so much. AJ was showing me his Dream Child keychain today. Whopper's wearing his t-shirt tonight. What's funny is I did ask AJ because like I always want to know AJ's thoughts. And like I don't know if AJ watches these straight through or just chimes in and stuff. So I was like, I gotta ask AJ because I asked a couple people what they thought. And AJ says to me, I don't even fucking remember either movie. He's like, I remember New Nightmare. He's like, does that one? He's like, do you like that one? I was like, wow. I was like, these movies are both so good for AJ's intro. He doesn't even remember them. So that's crazy. And this is around the time where AJ must have been, like teenager, like probably high school years around there. Like, I know AJ saw like Army of Darkness the following year in the theater. So this was 91. I wonder. He probably did see this at the show and just completely forgot it. That's how unmemorable it is. So, and Whopper did tell me that he thinks that part 5 is even worse than part 6. So Whopper did have an opinion. Although he did say that they're both fucking horrible movies. So that's not saying much that he put one over the other. And it's the same in my case. No matter which movie wins, they're both losers, technically. Also, in Freddy's Dead, when the Spencer, Carlos, and Tracy try to leave Springwood, but each other. Yeah, exactly. And the map says that they're fucked and all that. They forgot the rule of 8 and kill every 8 minutes. Well, hey, I would, even if one of these movies had a bigger body count, like you would think like after only doing 3 kills in this movie, we would up the body count at least. No, I don't even do this. Like, Nope. We'll do the same body count. We'll have annoying characters live like Leslie Dean. Like, it's just odd. It's funny that you mentioned, despite the fact that Freddy's Dead was poorly received, it had the biggest opening weekend out of all of them. That's right. It almost opened. It was just a few $1,000s short of opening at 13 million. So it opened. It was a big hit. 30 plus million it grossed worldwide. Of course, you have to keep taking in mind that the 3D was costing them more to make the film. And then, of course, they were charging the customer more to see the movies in 3D. So that's got to play in a factor somewhere. But it was definitely like if you're asking box office wise, part 6 easily. Because part 5 was the worst performing one of any of the original 6 until New Nightmare actually performed even worse, which is a shame because it's a lot better than both of these movies. They hyped it up much more than it deserved, to be honest. Oh, yeah, and that's the truth. If you watch the trailer for Freddy's Dead, I'm stoked. Like, I think it's a good trailer. I really like the trailer of Freddy's Dead, but the movie just doesn't live up to it. Whoever edited that trailer together, though, deserves the Nobel Peace Prize. Lisa Wilcox all the way. Hell yeah. Breckenmeyer. Oh, he was great in the Garfield movies. Oh, God, no. I can't stand Breckenmeyer, to be honest with you. If Freddy's Dead, I think that the citizens of Springwood are suffering from PTSD because there's the teacher at the now abandoned high school who is teaching the empty class. Sure. 2 really great leads. I like them both. Lisa Wilcox / Alice had a great arc in 4 and was cool to see her return in 5. I wonder if there were ever plans to bring Alice back for 6. From what she has said, the answer to that is yes. But I think because 5 did so bad, they said, fuck it, let's drop her. And they were like, let's just make a daughter character. And they brought in Lisa Zane. That's the story that she tells. Now, I'm sure that executives and writers and 2 years is a lot of time for ideas to be batted around. But I mean, I would think that her story checks out for the most part. Granted, who knows? Maybe there might be some story that a studio executive would know that we'll never know. On a side note, Breckenmeyer was good choice for John in the Garfield movies. Oh, we're putting over the Garfield movies in the chat. Oh my God, look at all this Garfield love. He and Jennifer Love Hewitt, he's sort of forgotten. See, oh my God. Well, I can't lie to y'all. I think the Garfield movies stink. In Freddy's Dead, when Maggie and John Doe are visiting the Springwood orphanage after learning that Krueger had a kid, which was placed there, the woman who runs it recognizes Maggie. It foreshadows that she is Krueger's daughter. Yes, and then they're trying to hint that it's John Doe. In the trailer for Freddy's Dead, it showed Freddy taking Carlos's soul. Yeah, that's right. It's not a bad trailer, but unfortunately, the movie did not reflect the good trailer. So that is lead versus lead, Zane versus Wilcox. We go Lisa Wilcox in that one as Freddy's Dead falls down a point as we go here to director versus director. Yes, we have Rachel Talalay in which was, I believe, her directorial debut, if I'm not mistaken. If it wasn't her directorial debut, it was her second film. It was one of her first 2 films. And of course, Stephen Hopkins, who I think is a hit and miss director. The following year for Elm Street 5, he makes Predator 2, which I always kind of liked. He down the road would make movies like Judgment Night. He made awful pieces of shit like The Reaping. He's a very hit and miss guy, Stephen Hopkins. I mean, he has like those 2 movies I just mentioned. I really like Judgment Night with Emilio Estevez and Dennis Leary, Cuba Gooding Jr. That's a really good, like, underrated 90s thriller movie. And then you have Predator 2, which I think is an underrated sequel in and of itself. Really like Danny Glover in the film. But with this, I mean, coming off what Rennie Harlan did, I would have thought Stephen Hopkins was a good choice. But again, he, to this day, complains that they rushed him, that this was a rush production. He wasn't able to do much that he would have liked to have done, and he felt that he could have done a better job. He even tells the story, which I thought this was a disgrace. And I think that any director that fucking says this, you should quit, or you should just remove yourself from the job, because in my opinion, if you take this stance that he did on this movie, I think it's best to just go home. I don't care what financial straits you are. If your heart's not in it, your heart's not in it. Basically what happened, the story is he went to the actress that plays Greta in part 5, which I get her name here. It is Erica Anderson, who's a good-looking woman, really good-looking woman. She apparently confronted him and said, hey, is it okay if I work on my character with you? And he said to her, and this is like a verbatim thing that she said about it. He said to her, I don't have time for that right now. You'll have to self-direct yourself. That's fucking the worst thing a director can do. It's worse than yelling at somebody. It's worse than making somebody cry. It's worse than fucking losing patience. That's terrible. To have an actress come up to you, say, hey, do you mind working on my character with me for 5 minutes? And you say, no, I don't have time for that. You could self-direct yourself. Buddy, you are the director. You have to fucking direct her, you piece of monkey shit. That's ridiculous. And the fact that he said that to me is an automatic fail. Like, you fail from saying that. That is beyond unprofessional. You do not belong doing this job, because that is disgrace that you would say that to her. And she was apparently upset about it. She still tried to bring stuff to the role. Granted, it's a very one-dimensional character. She tried. I don't blame the actress. If your director's heart was not in it and did not care to or give a shit to help you with your performance, no fucking wonder your character wasn't memorable. No fucking wonder your performance wasn't great. No fucking wonder. If that was his stance with her, I mean, who knows what it was with everybody else. So that's a real shame, because technically there are some interesting visuals here in The Dream Child. I do think some of the dream sequences have interesting visuals, playing with color and stuff like that. A lot of green colors and, blues, and they do use some stop motion and things like that. And they do the black and white filter when you go into the dream of the kid that likes the comic books and stuff like that. So there is a little bit of style. There is a little bit of flair. You do the scene where there's all the spiders. They had these tarantulas and they painted them red and green. And then they had them just scatter and they filmed it. So it would look like the puzzle pieces were moving when they were really spiders that were painted. But apparently such a great director, they apparently didn't wrangle up the tarantulas after, and the tarantulas roamed free. So who the fuck knows if they roamed free to the real world, bit anybody, got stomped on, because those tarantulas were never fucking recovered. Thanks, Stephen Hopkins. Just, it sounds like his brain was, I'm being rushed by a studio. The script is changing every day. I'm having a shit time as a director. And, you know, I'll try to bring my style and flair to save my own ass, when at the same time, you should really be trying to save the movie's ass, and you should really be trying to help your cast. And he did not do that. So big strikes here against Stephen Hopkins. But then on the other hand, Miss Rachel Talalay, who had been working on the Nightmare on Elm Street movies in that family all the way dating back to the original film. In 1984, she was actually part of the crew that helped Wes Craven direct one of the all-time great horror movies in A Nightmare on Elm Street, my top 4 horror movies ever made. She was there, and she helped and was, you know, creative consultant on parts 2, producer. She was always involved with these movies all the way up until part 6, where they said, hey, why don't you direct it? We'll have you direct it. We'll have you kill him off. You were there when we created him. Now you'll be the one to kill him off. And she was like, this is such an honor. This is so cool. She did not have the most experience in the world. She was definitely the more green of the 2 directors. And this is tough. I don't know what the fuck she's doing. I don't even know if she knew what the fuck she was doing. Like, this movie's, the direction is all over the place, and some of the performances are fucking bad. I mean, you have the John Doe character. There's a scene where Lisa Zane says, where are you from? And he just, over the top, it's a horrible edit, horrible cut, horrible directed shot where he turns and goes, oh no! He just screams in her fucking face like he's Arlie Ermy. And nothing she said or the scene or anything warrants the bad delivery of that line. I'm like, what the heck? Just odd. You have the scene where Breckin Meyer's father is lecturing him. And, I've come back here. It'll be the last time, son. And it's, dude, it's awful. Like, what the fuck, man? Like, I don't know if she was so overwhelmed from the technical aspect of directing that she was scared to get involved with the directors. I mean, with the actors, I should say. But, like, I don't know. Visually, I didn't think this movie looked good at all. I thought it looked like a bunch of shit. And, like, I know they try a lot more visual effects. Like, they have Sean Greenblatt falling from the plane. You have, you know, the video game sequence where, hey, Spence, let's get high, or whatever he said. He doesn't say let's get high. He says something like that, like let's do the good stuff or whatever. And he takes him into the TV world. Like, it tries, but I definitely don't think that the style is there either. Like, I don't know. It just, the style here really does not work. She really, I think, was a poor choice. Like, okay, morally, she might have been the right choice because she was there from the beginning, and it just felt like a lifetime achievement. Similar way to look at Gary Tunnicliffe with the Hellraiser. I think he was there from Hellraiser 1, and finally, after all these years, he gets to direct Hellraiser 10. Like, they finally were like, yeah, give it to Gary. Give Gary a shot. Like, I appreciate that. I like keeping it in the family, and I think morally, it was really nice to pick Rachel Talalay, but you could clearly tell she didn't know what the fuck she was doing. So by default, we have to go with Stephen Hopkins as the better director. As much as it pains me to do so for a director that said to his actors, yeah, you need to self-direct yourself. That's a shame, but I will say that I do think, for what it's worth, I do think that Stephen Hopkins did bring a little bit more of a unique visual flair. So I'm going to have to lean towards Hopkins here. Let's hear what y'all have to say, though, in the chat. Which director of the 2 was better? I'm very curious to hear what y'all have to say. Let's see. Think we were here. That reminds me, there's actually a deleted scene featuring that clip of Freddy sucking up Carlos's soul on YouTube. Yes, that's true. These 2 movies have Robert Englund without his Freddy makeup. In The Dream Child, Englund has a cameo as one of the 100 maniacs. That's right. In 1980s, there's a B movie, which Galaxy of Terror, which I love Galaxy of Terror, which is a ripoff of Alien. It had Robert Englund, and of course, the late Yaphet Kotto was an alien. And of course, it also has Sid Haig. Sid Haig is in Galaxy of Terror. Saw that in 35 millimeter. Dude, Freddy coming out of the wall. Oh, dude, that edit, I got to post that. Honky Tonk posted the fucking edit of me going, that shit's funny, man. There was once a album called Freddy's Greatest Hits, and they had a song which very haunting called "Don't Sleep." Okay, so let's get into, before we move on to our next category, which is going to be the next big one in death scenes / characters, which are going to be a lot to talk about here. Let's get into some smaller ones, because right now the Dream Child actually has a 3-1 lead of being the better movie. We got 10 categories, so let's see, can Freddy's Dead get back into this fight? We have Freddy versus Freddy. Freddy versus Freddy is interesting. So basically what this category is which performance from Robert Englund was better here, because of course, that's one of the biggest things too in Nightmare on Elm Street. By this point, I think by part 4's point, Robert Englund in. So this was the reason people were coming to see these movies. Freddy had become Americana. Kids were buying his pajamas. Kids were dressing up as him for Halloween. And it's funny because the whole irony is he was a child killer. Hell, by 1988, they had created the Freddy's Nightmare series, where Freddy was the host in Vain to the Crypt Keeper, and even was the antagonist in some of them. Granted, I think of like 40-something episodes, Freddy was the antagonist of like 8 of them. So it's not like he's in all of them. But you did have, I remember the Tobe Hooper directed pilot called No More Mr. Nice Guy, where it's the trial of Freddy Krueger, which I thought was a really good episode of TV for what it's worth. If people haven't seen that, it's the trial of Freddy Krueger, where you do have Robert Englund playing Freddy on trial, and Tobe Hooper does direct the episode. Very good, in my opinion. It's on YouTube to watch, and it's, of course, the season premiere, or series premiere, I should say, of Freddy's Nightmares. So Freddy was popping. Freddy was MTV. Freddy was everywhere. And then you get to part 5, where it was the most rushed of the movies. I know this was the quickest quickest post-production, very rushed film. And I do think Robert Englund's performance does reflect in that. I think, for what it's worth, this is the worst performance of Freddy from Robert Englund that he ever gave. I think it's just so sleep. It's funny to I guess say it, but it's like, it seems like it's sleepwalking. He's not energetic. He has no oomph. It's just very, very limp performance. Like, in the previous movies, you flunk, and, welcome to Wonderland, Alice. It just seemed like he's having more fun in parts 3 and 4, respectively, where in this one, I just feel like he's so subdued. I don't like his performance in this. Like when he's we'll see, bitch. We'll just see. Bon appetit, bitch. Like, it just seemed like he went too over the top in the scenes where he's generally charming and funny, like in part 4, putting on the sunglasses and, the meatball pizza and stuff, the soul pizza. Like that stuff, I felt he just really did not do well, here. That balancing of being funny, Freddy, being charming, being charismatic, being scary. It's a hard character to play. Robert Englund deserves all the credit in the world, but there's no doubt that he just phoning it in here. There's just no way around it. And it was rushed, and you could tell it. And I believe Lisa Wilcox tells the story where on set, instead of going over the script, he was like reading like British novels or something. Like she said, I listened to an interview with her where she was like, yeah, I was sitting there and I was in Freddy makeup for a day, and there's Robert just chilling on the side, reading this novel. Like, it just doesn't seem like his heart was in this one. And you could tell. And whereas this movie, as bad as this movie is, I do think the performance is better. I like his performance in this a little bit more, because I do think that over the 2 years where they were batting around ideas and they didn't know what they were doing, and they were running around like chickens with their head cut off and throwing all these ideas. We'll fucking have him leave Springwood. We'll have him have a daughter. We'll have it in 3D. We'll fucking have worms come out of Freddy's head, and that's how he has the dream powers. And we'll stick him with a pipe bomb at the end. Like, all the bad ideas that were being thrown around, I do think Robert realized 2 things. Number one, this is forever going to be the number one thing I'm remembered for. This is forever going to be the most iconic character I play. I will live and die being remembered for playing Fred Krueger, for being the Springwood slasher, for being the voice of horror of the 1980s. We do love Jason. We do love Michael Myers. We love all of these horror icons of the 1980s. But dare I say, there was none more important than Freddy Krueger, because it was horror's voice. Horror finally had a voice again, and it became a part of this country. It became a part of Americana, was Freddy Krueger. And even the opening scene where we get this really like pretentious quote or dreams, nightmares start and we enter our dreams. It's this BS like dream quote. And then the next quote is welcome to prime time, bitch, Freddy Krueger. And it goes to show you how iconic this character has become. And that's the second thing he realized here was, this is it. We're going out with a bang. I'm giving it all I got. He goes absolutely dials it up to 11, maybe even 12 in this movie. And while I do think the movie is not great, Robert Englund as the character is fantastic. He's great, whether he's out of the makeup playing, Freddy before he's scarred, which you do see a little bit in this film, or whether he's given the over-the-top lines of, I'll get you my pretty in your little souls, too, doing the Wicked Witch impression and Power Glove and all this stuff. He, as silly as it is, he gave it his all here. You definitely see more energy, more oomph here than you do with Elm Street 5. So for me, Freddy's performance from Robert Englund, we're going to go with the Dream. I'm sorry, not the Dream Master, but with Freddy's Dead. So Freddy's Dead back on the board with a point. We're at 3-2 with the Dream Child in front of being the better movie. Let's go back to comments here and see what you all have to say. If you ever watch the extended version of Deaths, Greta and Dan is actually, that's right. And we'll get there when we get to death scenes. We'll talk all things about their death scenes. Robert was just having fun in Freddy's Dead. He enjoyed doing Carlos's death. Yeah. And like, I would rather that, you having fun and being over the top and chewing scenery, than I could tell you didn't want to be there, and he probably didn't. I mean, you look at what he was doing in 1989. He directed his first movie. He directed 976 Evil. So he was trying to direct a movie at this time. This was a time where I think everyone had fatigue. I think it was just such a bad time to rush a movie out. I think it was like, let's fucking take a break from Freddy. And it's the age-old question, how can I miss you if you're not gone? And I don't think Freddy was gone long enough. It was within the calendar year that the next movie got released, and I think it really, really hurt the Dream Child. It really did. It crippled the movie. In the Dream Child, it had the return of the spark glove sequence from the original movie. That's right. Do you know if Freddy in Child is the Freddy that have less screen time? Do you know? I'm sorry. Let me read this again. Do you know if Freddy in the Dream Child is the Freddy that had less screen time? That's a good question. So what you're asking me, which movie did he have the least screen time in? That's a good question. It might be fucking shocking. It might be the fucking original. I don't know. That's a good question. Can somebody look that up and check me on that? What is the Elm Street movie where Robert Englund has the least screen time? I'm going to Google it here. Which Elm Street? Mateo is taking us off on a tangent here. Which Elm Street does Freddy have the least screen time? He definitely has more in Freddy's Dead. That's true. Screen time. But I thought I would say the original. 80, it says, okay, 85, which would be Freddy's Revenge. So, okay, Freddy's Revenge is the Elm Street movie with the least amount of Robert Englund as Freddy, which is interesting. But I guess, again, they're trying to tell the whole story. You've got the body, I've got the brain. He's trying to take over Mark's body. So, I mean, I don't know. I definitely actually would have said the original, gun to my head. But, yes, looks like it's part 2. But I would say definitely, as opposed to Freddy's Dead, he's definitely on screen more in part 6 as opposed to part 5. That's a fact. That I know for sure, because I just recently watched the movies. Let's do another quick one here. Soundtrack versus soundtrack. This is a slam dunk for Freddy's Dead. I think Freddy's Dead as easily as the better soundtrack. The Nightmare on Elm Street 5 has the awful Freddy rap at the end, where it's like, oh my God, it's so bad. It's like, I don't even want to try to sing it here because this is so offensively bad, the Elm Street rap. I posted it yesterday to like promote the show. I was like, man, this is like only in 1989 would they have tried to fucking Freddy rap this bad. I think it's called Are You Ready for Freddy? But like there's been better versions of Are You Ready for Freddy? Are you ready for Freddy tonight? That version of it works, but the rap version is just so fucking bad. Oh God, it's so bad. But yes, just slam dunk as Freddy's Dead ties things up here. In Freddy's Revenge, he's trying to invade Jesse's body. That's right. You've got the body. I've got the brain. I can't remember a single thing from Dream Child. I can remember most of Freddy's Dead. I think that's another clue that Dream Child suffered fatigue. Sure. I liked him possessing Jesse. I did too. I like part 2. I think part 2 is a really good movie. Although I do know that a lot of people hate it, so it is what it is. But Freddy's Dead in a quick way here is tied things up at 3-3, and we'll end with finale versus finale. I guess effects versus effects would fall into the next categories though, but let's go back up here as we have a two-parter: death scenes / characters. So the death scenes and the characters that befall, of course, these people. The reason I combine this one is because obviously we'll explain the characters and then how they died. So it's kind of a two-part question here. So 2 points can be given away here with these questions. And man, what a shit show. The characters in both these movies are terrible. And of course, you have Danny Hassel returning in part 5 as Dan, who I always had the theory that guy is such a shitty actor that they just named his character Dan. So he would like organically answer to it like, hey, Dan, like, oh, hey, oh, that's my real name. My name's Danny Hassel. Okay, hi, I suck at acting. I would think that's why they kept his name as Dan. Of course, you do have from the People Under the Stairs, which would come out a couple of years later, Kelly Jo Minter, who is in the movie. Now, I like her as an actress. Her character is just terrible. I can't stand her character in this. She's just so bitchy and unsupportive, just like the worst type of friend you'd ever want to have is Kelly Jo Minter in this movie. That's a shame because I like Kelly Jo Minter, and I feel like she should have been like the moral voice in this movie and somebody that we really grew to like a good like 1B to Lisa Wilcox's 1A. You have the fucking annoying kid that reads comic books and he secretly loves Greta, who is the model lady. She's trying to become a model and he secretly loves her, although he doesn't say shit about it until after she's died. This is like, you're trying so hard to be like Dream Warriors and the Dream Master, where it's like, oh, in the Dream Warriors, we had the kid that loved Dungeons and Dragons who was crippled. He was a good character. We had Kincaid, we had Joey, and let's kick the motherfucker's ass all over Dreamland. And Joey was into like this perverted kid, and Jennifer Rubin, you know, with I'm in my dreams, I'm beautiful and bad. Like the Dream Warriors kids were great. All those characters had something to them and they were likable, they were enjoyable, they were relatable. And then the Dream Master, I'd say, even though they're very stereotypical, you know, one-dimensional on like the brother likes karate and the one lady is you know, she has asthma and she's a nerd, and one lady hates bugs and works out, and you know, we do have one-dimensional, but even that movie, I love Andres Jones's character. Hello, baby. And him coaching her and being heartbroken over the loss of Tuesday Night, and you know, coaching his sister that you got to be like, hiya, you know, you got to put some oomph into that, sister, hiya, you know. I loved his character. I thought the characters in part 4 worked. Here, it's like you took the great characters in part 3, diluted them down in part 4, and diluted them down again until you get this shit show where, again, though, these kids were given no fucking direction from the director. So it's like they tried. They really did try. I give all the credit in the world. These kids, they tried. They fucking failed. There's not one good side character. They're all fucking terrible. And then on the other hand, we have these shit stains that are in Freddy's Dead, which I hate all of them, man. Like, you have Leslie Dean, who was like the most annoying character of these movies for me. And I actually, if there was ever a character that should have died in these movies, it was Leslie Dean, because she is unbearable. Like, I can't, like, the way Carlos gets killed and his ears explode, that's me when I have to listen to Leslie Dean for 5 minutes. She is ghastly. Fucking ghastly. Oh my God, what a fucking annoying hoe. And the whole thing of, in this goofy cartoonish movie with power gloves and fucking cartoon sound effects and John Doe's and fucking Roseanne Barr and Tom Arnold, we're going to have this randomly very serious subplot where she was abused sexually and physically by her father. And we're going for a big, like, you know, character moment here, and this is a serious thing. And like, listen, like, there's no doubt that's serious subject matter, and I'm sure there have been people that gone through that, and that's terrible if you have. I'm not saying or reflecting anything in this movie that happened to people in real life. But my issue is, in this fucking movie, that's where you put it? In this movie? What? It's so out of place. It's just so doesn't belong there. And she is god-awful as the character. Terrible. We have Brockenmeyer, who plays I don't even know his damn name. Let's look up Breckenmeyer. It just is Breckenmeyer to me, but I'll get the character's name. Just Spencer. Yeah, well, Spence, let's smoke that good stuff, Spence. He loves video games. His dad doesn't like him. He hates his dad. I'm not like you. I'm not like you. Horrible. You have Carlos, who I wanted to like because if there was anyone that had a heart or a soul I guess soul for Freddy's sake, I wanted to like him, but just I don't know. I didn't think I feel like they gave him the least of the three of them. And then you have John Doe, played by Sean Greenblatt, who again he's John Doe. We don't really get much. Like you're really, really spending a lot of the time with this character that you just unceremoniously swerve and kill off, and then that's kind of it. I think as bad as the characters are in both these movies, I can't stand anybody but Lisa Zane and maybe Yaphet Kotto in this movie. So for me, by default, we're going to go with the delusion of the delusion that is the characters of the Dream Child. It is for characters, though. I don't think you get worse in these two movies. Like, I dare you to name two franchise slasher sequels with worse characters in this movie than these movies. I would even say the characters in Friday the 13th Part 7 are better than the characters in these two movies, which is saying a lot because the characters in Friday the 13th, The New Blood are terrible. But I actually think that right here, we got to give the edge to, the cast from the Dream Child. I think they're a little bit better for me. They probably did. I mean, a lot of people would say 4 and 5 tried to be, the Dream Warriors type of movies. That's true. That's definitely a good point, Anthony. Let's see. Freddy's Dead came out the same year Wes Craven's People Under the Stairs, which had Kelly Jo Minter, who played Yvonne. Yes, that's right. In The Dream Child, the final confrontation always reminds me of the scene from the movie Labyrinth. Okay, we'll get there. Mark, Greta, and Yvonne, while not awful characters, they are all definitely one note, which was a shame because I think had this movie been able to not be rushed and you've been able to expand a little bit, I would have loved to have seen a relationship between Greta and Mark. Like, go there. Why not? Like, okay, I'm the nerdy boy. I'm the outcast. I'm having this attraction to this beautiful model girl in our group. Have something there. Just a couple of scenes where, he tries and then we feel extra bad when he dies. Or we, see that they actually maybe are going to hook up. Then she dies and he's heartbroken. And this is personal Krueger. Something. Give him something. Give him one two-dimensional. It's just all flat. Oh, what a shame! Because you could have, if you just had worked a little bit on it, it could have worked. Cast until 4 were amazing. That's true. These movies up until this point did have amazing casts. They really did. 3 especially. I would say 3 is the best cast of any of them. There's no doubt. What a fantastic cast in Part 3. There was a script which was included in Alice in her 30s who had been killed by Freddy, and it was going to include teenage Jacob. That would have been horrible. I'm glad Alice is the survivor girl of the series because she's awesome. Nightmare on Elm Street remake is the worst. Oh, well, Nightmare on Elm Street, the remake, is the worst movie of all of them. There's no doubt. But, I mean, of the original series, of the ones that, like, I can rewatch, I will never rewatch that remake. I will tell you right now, never. I hate that movie with passion. I rewatch these back-to-back Tuesdays. So, as bad as they are, I'll take them over that remake. Just for Robert alone, I'll take them over the remake. And at least that they have some sort of connection to the first few movies, as bad as they are. So point 1 of this goes to Part 5, but Part 2 of it, death scenes versus death scenes of these characters. How do we like how these people were killed off? Let me know, guys. What did you think? Which movie had the better death scenes? I'll run through them. They're really quick. There's only 3 in each movie, unless there's maybe 4 in Freddy's Dead if you count Freddy's death, which if you count Freddy's death, it's, oh boy, it gives the Dream Master, the Dream Child, maybe another point here. But we'll run through them. We have Danny is killed by his motorcycle. Like his motorcycle melds into him. The effects works really good with it. But man, the fucking death scene, I think, is just so stupid. And like Freddy's talking like, oh, well, no drinking and driving. Like it's, oh, dude, horrible. Greta is the supermodel who falls asleep at the dinner table. We have a bunch of house guests over. She falls asleep at the dinner table, and Freddy feeds her to death. And her cheeks are engorged. Again, not bad effect, but like very boring kill. And like, I know that the MPAA cut this movie's balls off with the kills. Like they were initially, the kill for Greta was way longer. Like Freddy to the point was like stabbing her in the stomach, taking her guts out, feeding her own guts. If that was shown, yeah, that's an awesome death scene, but it wasn't shown. This was a movie that, of course, was taken away from the MPAA, which is, of course, the what the hell did this Corey call him? Corey has a great name for them, like the something Pussies Association of America. So I forget what he calls them, but like he's so right. Like the MPA was a huge enemy of this film. And then you have the Super Freddy kill with the kid going into the comic book, and it's Michael Bailey Smith is Freddy, and then Freddy like cuts him up into like paper pieces, whatever. And then in the dream, in fucking Freddy's Dead, it's Carlos is this kid with hearing aids, and Freddy keeps making noise until his head explodes. Breckin Meyer goes into the video game, and now I'm playing with power, and he kills him with the fucking in the video game. And then Sean Greenblatt just gets fucking thrown off of a plane in a dream and impaled on spikes, and that's it. It's horrible. Both of them have horrible death scenes, and it's like, while I want to lean towards Freddy's Dead just because they show a little bit more, and I don't know, maybe because they show a little bit more with the Dream Child, at least, you have the excuse of the MPAA cut its balls off. We shot all that stuff. It was trying to be gory. It was trying to be graphic, all this stuff. We just got cut down by the, Motion Picture Association of America. So, that's an excuse, I guess. So for me, Dream Child gets another point. So Dream Child's up 5-3 now. Unless Freddy's Dead could form a tie, Dream Child is going to be the superior movie and Freddy's Dead will be the worst. But we have 2 categories to go. Can Freddy's Dead get even? Let's see. We have effects versus effects. And yeah, ladies and gentlemen, I know, hate to break it to you. Hate to declare a winner so early. But yeah, effects versus effects, there's no doubt that this is the better movie. So by that standard, the Dream Child is the winner. Yes. But can Freddy's Dead get even? Can the finale of the series, which was supposed to be until 3 years later when they rebooted it again, can ending versus ending, can we get a style point for Freddy's Dead? Can we get that here as we move into the final category of this 6-3 game here, finale versus finale? Wow. I hate both these finales. They're both fucking terrible. With this movie, I don't even really know what the fuck's happening. Like, I don't know. Like, you have this little kid, like, I want to go with you and do Freddy things. Like, it's the weirdest, like, the little kid who's Freddy's child, like, weird. Like, it's the weirdest. I don't know. I thought that kid was such a weird actor and, like, weird looking. And I know that, like, he apparently looks the same now, but with this, like, a giant Grizzly Adams beard, which that kid, I do know he was going through, like, a hard time. His dad had passed away in real life. So I know I can't believe that they would do that and then have the kid act. Like, I felt bad for him, but the whole ending of this is weird. Like, you have scenes where they're in the dream world going up and down these steps. You have Lisa Wilcox dressed up as Amanda Kruger. You have them merging at one point. It's just a fucking shit show. It's all over the place. The Freddy fetus is running around, whatever. It's not great. It's really, it's honestly a shitty fucking ending. But in this movie, I think the ending is shitty too. Now, granted, the lead into the final battle is okay, but the final battle itself is the most biggest fart in church ever, where the whole idea, well, I'm going to do something we haven't done in these movies. We're going to grab him out of the dream world and bring him into the real world. Wow, we haven't tried that already. We haven't done that a million times already. Okay, that's what they're planning to do, which they did in the original. She goes in with the 3D glasses, the 3D gimmicks, which is a big part of the finale. You get these awful special effects of these floating worms, and she goes through his childhood, his teenagehood, his fucking adulthood as a parent, to his death of being burned alive, and then confronts him and battles him to the death. Now, the stuff of going through, like, basically the Christmas story of his, going through the past, present, future, whatever, that stuff I don't mind. It's done too late in the film, and it feels like the film is just completely derailed there, but at the same time, it's a little bit more entertaining. I can tell what's going on as opposed to this movie. But then the final battle just kind of ruins it all too, where it's like they battle each other. They're saying all these like personal stuff. Like, I remember when you used to hold my hand, Daddy. I hated it then too. And she cracks his hand and he goes, hey, I forgot how much it hurts to be alive. And then they're fighting each other. Yaphet and Leslie Dean are trying to get in there. They throw her a pipe bomb. She stabs Freddy with it. and she just basically runs out of the room, and Freddy says, "Kids," and explodes the giant CGI worms. And then fucking you have this weird pan shot in the hallway with Lisa Zane. She goes, "Freddy's dead." And the movie ends with like a fucking montage of the series. I, how the fuck do you end two movies like that? I mean, horrible endings. Horrible. Horrible. I don't even know what to say with these endings. But let's hear what y'all have to say before we pick which ending was better. I don't know, because the endings of these movies are fucking terrible, man. Let's see. That's the thing, Granny. Mark and Greta got the short end of the stick in 5. Their relationship wasn't expanded on enough. And that's a factor of not of just being rushed. You know, there's no direction. There was script changes daily. You know, they just weren't given a fair shake. I really can't blame the actors there. I blame the director and I blame the studio for rushing it. I do think this was an issue from, Bob Shea. I think Bob Shea should have said, listen, we have so much money. We're swimming in it right now. Why don't we take a year off and regroup and come up with something good? And instead, they fucking rushed it. And the cash cow went dry. And then they took their 2 years off. And all right, we'll just go out with a bang and we'll charge people extra money to see it in 3D. And that's what happened here, which is unfortunate. These two movies single-handedly destroyed the franchise. Like, who knows, if you had taken your time, how many good Elm Street movies we could have gotten. Because they were 4 for 4. Also in The Dream Child, Alice's father had redeemed himself. That's right. He's in the beginning of 5. He's in the beginning of 5. She's like, oh, I bet my dad didn't even come. How terrible is this? And he pops up. He goes, oh, I don't want to embarrass you. I liked that moment. I was like, can I get more of this character in the movie? I like him. Like, nope, you don't see him till the very end. He's at a picnic with them. And he's like, oh, my baby grandson. I'm like, what the fuck? Where were you the entire fucking movie? Like, where the hell were you? I'm sorry, I just clicked on that comment. In Freddy's Dead, that scene where John walking up the invisible stairs in the air is so amazing. Okay, so special effect. The effects in 5 are awesome. Love that food scene, her busting out of the fridge. Okay, yeah, the effects in 5 are definitely better. Mark's death is admittedly my favorite in 5. As for 6, tied with Carlos and Spencer. I don't think I have a favorite in 6. I think all of them are bad. Like, I don't like any of the death scenes in Part 6, man. It's just bad. The hearing aid death is so dumb. Yeah, it is. It's so fucking stupid. I don't know. I don't like it at all. I think what the thing is with Freddy's Dead and declaring it the shittier of the two movies, I also would dare to say that this movie has a sense of humor that maybe I just don't find funny. I think that's the thing. Like, this is a bad horror movie that was rushed and just feels like it was a mess and has all these things going on that just drown the movie. Whereas this is just like an uninspired, bad horror comedy with just fucking no fucking sense of what we're doing or finality or fucking energy. Well, there is energy, but it's just in all the wrong places. I don't know. It's a weird movie, man. In Freddy's Dead, Freddy tampers with Carlos's hearing aids. Yeah, which is terrible. In Dream Child and the Dream Warriors, they have some cool stop motion animation oh my God, yes. And it's done so well in Dream Warriors with the marionette death where Freddy cuts himself from the marionette and then walks that kid. I always thought that was one of the most brilliant death scenes in all these movies and cuts him off. And did you like the documentary Never Sleep Again, which was a documentary on movies? Yes, it was. Yes, I do. And I did specifically watch the parts 5 and 6 for this. And I did watch Freddy's Nightmares just for shits and giggles, like them explaining how that show came to be. That's a great horror documentary. Highly recommend to any Elm Street fan. That is the definitive special feature on all of these movies. They go into like an hour-long making of the first movie and then like mini making of all the other movies and what the movies mean now. Get basically everyone except Johnny Depp back to do interviews. It was great. I love that documentary. To me, that and Crystal Lake Memories, you can't go wrong. Bro, I'm just mad. I love Freddy's Dead. No, I mean, hey, or Boo, I'm sorry. You can love Freddy's Dead all you want. I had quite a few people tell me that it's not close to them. Like, they think Freddy's Dead is by far the better movie. So that's fine. But the score here, which ending was? I would say the ending of The Dream Child is actually worse, just because I can't even tell what's happening really. So it's 6-4. I would say this movie gets 6 points. This movie gets 4. So this movie by 2 points is the weaker, the shittier movie of the two. But again, totally subjective. Like, I guess in theory, I'd rather watch a bad, rushed horror movie with fucking messy themes and horrible one-dimensional characters and MPAA cut death scenes, as opposed to a really fucking unfunny comedy with goofy cartoon sound effects and everyone's over the top and a bland, pointless finale that makes no sense and is so unearned. It's just, oh man, it's god awful. Night Watch Zone said it better himself about the credit montage. The segment makes the viewers miss those moments with those characters a lot more than what we just saw. That's a good point. That's a very good point. Yeah, like they tried that with Final Destination as well. When Final Destination 5 ends, they do the whole montage of the series, and with the AC/DC song, if you want blood, you got it. Blood on the streets, blood on the. If you want blood, da-da-da, you got it. I love that. That's a great way to end. I think that should have just ended the Final Destination movies, but of course now they're doing Final Destination Bloodlines, which I would avoid like the plague. In The Dream Child, I love the music video by the group called Houdini, called Anyway. I Gotta Swing It. Yeah. That's one of the songs used in The Dream Child. I don't know. I think both these movies stink. I really don't recommend either film, but like if I had to pick, I really do think that Freddy's Dead is worse. It's close. It is close. I think it's 6-4, so it's close for me. But I do think there's just way less excuses here. I really do. I believe that you had 2 years to do this. You had time. You had money. You could have thought this out and really rebounded and made something worthwhile to end and go out on a high note. And instead, you just made it a fucking joke, and a bad joke at that. So for me, Freddy's Dead is the weakest. Goodbye. Let's see. Any comments? No. Let's see. Okay, yeah, I don't see any comments. So that is the Versus episode here, as Friday 13th. Fucking A Nightmare on Elm Street 5 has prevailed over Part 6. Part 6 is the shittier movie of the two. So let's give Part 5 its victory lap with one of two movies that it could beat in this franchise. Horrible stuff. Absolutely horrible stuff. But it is what it is. So this was a fun, interesting show to do something, that wasn't a Versus episode in and of the vein of which movie's better here, which movie's worse, and Freddy's Dead is the weakest of the two for me. So next week we will be having our Horror March Madness. I'll be posting the link once we have our final 32 films. We have 5 films left to be decided. 3 of them you can vote on right now as of the recording of this. 2 of them tomorrow, and then by noon on Saturday, we'll have our list of 32. I'll make the brackets, and we will go from there. We'll declare a winner next week on Granny's Graveyard, so that's going to be fun. The following week, we are going to have the person who won the fan request show. Ed has requested that I interview an independent wrestler by the name of Rage. So we'll be having a pro wrestler on the show, and we'll be asking him all things wrestling. He's a diehard horror fan, has Captain Spaulding tattoos, and has acted in some movies with Cynthia Rothrock. So we're going to be having Mr. Rage on the show. Very excited to have him on there. Preparing to interview him, my very first interview on this channel, but that was the viewer request. And then, of course, I'll be hitting you guys with the April schedule fairly shortly. I just have to work some things out. I definitely want to get some guests on again. It's been too long since I've had. Remember the days when I had guests on Granny's Graveyard? Yeah, I know it's been a while, but some personal shit happened, and I was just like, I can't like entertain and prepare for guests. I'm just going to go solo dolo on these and bang these shows out one by one. So next week, though, March Madness, very much looking forward to it. Please, if I do post it, please let me know if you fill out your brackets, what you got. I'll do list of 32 movies, and I'll post a link for you to fill out your own bracket, and then you guys can let me know from there. Next week, live on Granny's Graveyard, we will declare a winner. 32 films will enter the tournament, and there can be only one champion of champions. But tonight, the champion of champions was this piece of shit movie. So I don't know. Next week, hopefully we crown a movie that's a little bit more deserving of being a champion of something. In The Dream Child, I'm sorry, I said that one. I'm just messing around. I tend to love crappy horror. I don't think you get the humor of Freddy's Dead seriously, though. Great show only. Hey, yeah, I definitely don't. I don't get the humor. I think the humor sucks in the movie. It's not funny to me. But humor's subjective for sure. But thank you so much for the kind words, Miss C. Mateo, throw one of these. Thank you, my friend. And shout out to Mateo, because next week the UWUFU is all thanks to him and him letting me know about that website. So everybody, if you're catching watching the replay, comment down below. Let me know which one was worse, part 5 or part 6. Let me know and why. I know a lot of people were animated with me all week, texting, oh, part 5 is worse because of this, or part 6 is the worst because of that. Whatever you're feeling, whatever you think, let me know. I'm all ears to hear it. But thank you so much for all watching. Ant-Man 25, great episode, bro. Dude, always a pleasure to talk with you. Really enjoy talking with you over text chat and all that. Texas THC says, great stream, Senor Grande. Thank you, sir. Fetus Freddy bids you all good night. Mernsey picked the winner right here and there. Yep, Fetus Freddy is the W here. Fetus Freddy is the winner, and the shittiest film of the two is Freddy's Dead, unfortunately. But everybody, thank you so much for watching, and we will catch you next time only on the Graveyard. Too sweet peace, and we'll catch you next time. Have a great weekend, everybody. Stay safe. Good night, everybody.